Hi friends, hope you're doing well in your personal and professional life. Today we will discuss one more topic which related to the contract management. So let us start the video, and our today's topic is time at large, titled Understanding Time at Large in Construction Contracts, Protecting Projects and Avoiding Costly Delays. Managing construction projects often feels like walking a tightrope, balancing schedules, budgets, and client expectations. But what happens when delays occur and the contract no longer holds the contractor to the original timeline? This is where the concept of time at large comes into play. Time at large is a pivotal concept that can significantly impact both contractors and employers. Understanding it can mean the difference between a smoothly executed project and costly legal disputes. Let's break it down. What does time at large mean? In construction contracts, the timeline is one of the most critical aspects. Typically, contracts define a fixed date for project completion, and any delays result in penalties, often in the form of liquidated damages. But under certain circumstances, this completion date can become unenforceable. When that happens, time becomes at large. So, what does this mean for contractors? Once time is at large, the contractor is no longer required to meet the original deadline and is only obligated to complete the project within a reasonable time. The challenge, of course, is determining what constitutes a reasonable time. This can vary significantly based on the project's scope, the delays involved, and the particular circumstances. How does time become at large? There are several ways that time can become at large in a construction contract, but it almost always involves a failure in the mechanisms set up to manage delays. Here are the most common triggers. 1. No completion date in the contract. Believe it or not, some contracts begin without a firm completion date. This can occur in letters of intent or preliminary agreements that instruct contractors to start work without finalizing the terms. Without a clear completion date, time becomes at large right from the start. 2. Acts of prevention by the employer. Perhaps the most common reason time becomes at large is due to employer-caused delays. These are known as acts of prevention. For instance, if the employer delays site access, fails to approve design changes on time, or causes interruptions that prevent the contractor from completing the project as scheduled, time can become at large. In these situations, it would be unfair to hold the contractor accountable for a deadline they couldn't meet due to circumstances outside of their control. 3. Failure to properly administer extensions of time. Construction contracts often include extension of time provisions that allow for deadline adjustments when delays occur. If these provisions aren't properly administered by the certifier, usually the architect or engineer, time can be set at large. For example, if the contractor is entitled to an extension of time but the certifier fails to grant it, the original deadline becomes invalid and the contractor only needs to complete the project within a reasonable time frame. These scenarios shift the contractor's obligation from finishing by a fixed date to completing the work within a period that can be defended as reasonable under the circumstances. The impact of time at large on liquidated damages. One of the most significant consequences of time becoming at large is the loss of the employer's right to levy liquidated damages for late completion. Liquidated damages are pre-agreed sums that the contractor must pay if they fail to meet the project's completion date. But when time becomes at large, these penalties become unenforceable. Instead, the employer is left with the option of pursuing general damages under common law. But here's the catch. General damages are not easy to claim. The employer must prove actual financial losses resulting from the delay, which can be complex and costly to demonstrate in court. Or key legal precedents. Several court cases have shaped the legal understanding of time at large and its implications for construction contracts. Let's look at two pivotal cases that illustrate how courts apply this principle. Peak Construction Liverpool versus McKinney Foundations Limited in 1970. This case involved delays caused by the employer's failure to approve remedial works on time. Since the contract made no provision for extending the completion date in this scenario, the court ruled that time had become at large. The contractor was no longer bound by the original deadline, and the employer lost the right to impose liquidated damages. Rapid Building Group versus Ealing Family Housing in 1984. In this case, the contractor was given possession of the site later due to squatters. The contract did not account for this type of delay, so the court ruled that time had become at large, releasing the contractor from the original deadline and rendering liquidated damages unenforceable. These cases highlight the importance of ensuring that contracts include clear and enforceable extension of time provisions that can accommodate potential delays. How common law and civil law approaches differ. It's also essential to understand that time at large is treated differently depending on the legal jurisdiction. In common law jurisdictions, such as the UK, courts are more likely to declare time at large when the employer's actions cause delays that aren't properly addressed by the contract's extension provisions. Common law courts focus on equity, meaning they aim to ensure fairness in the contractual relationship, especially when it comes to enforcing liquidated damages. In contrast, civil law jurisdictions, such as Middle East, take a different approach. Civil law courts prioritize contractual interpretation and often seek to preserve the contract's terms, including the original completion date and liquidated damages provisions, even when delays occur. These courts have the supervisory power to adjust timelines or penalties where necessary to prevent unjust outcomes. Practical implications for contractors and employers. For both contractors and employers, understanding how time at large works and how to prevent it can have a massive impact on project success. Here are some practical tips. 1. Ensure a clear completion date. A contract without a specific completion date is a ticking time bomb. Always include a clear, firm deadline to prevent time becoming at large from the start. 2. Properly manage extensions of time. Make sure that any delays, especially those caused by the employer, are managed properly through the extension of time provisions in the contract. Certifiers must act promptly and appropriately to adjust deadlines when justified. 3. Avoid acts of prevention. Employers must avoid actions that prevent the contractor from completing the work on time. Delaying site access, withholding necessary information, or failing to approve design changes in a timely manner can all lead to time becoming at large and cost the employer their right to impose liquidated damages. 4. Understand local legal frameworks. Contractors and employers working in both common law and civil law jurisdictions should be aware of how each system handles time at large. In common law countries, courts may be quicker to declare time at large, while civil law courts tend to preserve the contract's framework as much as possible. Now we reach to conclusion. Let's understand how we should be navigating time at large for our project success. Time at large is a complex but critical concept in construction contracts. Once time is at large, it dramatically shifts the dynamics of the contract, freeing the contractor from a fixed deadline and leaving the employer to pursue general damages, which are often more difficult to claim. By understanding the triggers for time becoming at large and how different legal systems treat it, contractors and employers can take steps to protect themselves. Ensuring clear contract terms, managing delays properly, and being mindful of actions that could prevent the contractor from completing the project on time are all essential to avoiding the costly consequences of time at large. Understanding and managing this concept is key to ensuring your projects stay on track, minimizing disputes, and ultimately safeguarding the success of your construction endeavors. Before we end this video, let us quickly recap key questions and answers on time at large. Question 1. What is time at large? Answer. Time at large occurs when the originally agreed project completion date becomes unenforceable, usually due to delays caused by the employer or failure to manage extensions of time. The contractor is then required to complete the project within a reasonable time. Question 2. How does time become at large? Answer. Time becomes at large when there is no clear completion date in the contract, when the employer prevents timely completion, or when the certifier fails to properly manage extensions of time. Question 3. What happens to liquidated damages when time is at large? Answer. When time becomes at large, the employer loses the right to levy liquidated damages, and they can only claim general damages, which are harder to prove. Question 4. How do common law and civil law jurisdictions differ in handling time at large? Answer. Common law courts, such as in the UK, are more likely to declare time at large for fairness, while civil law courts, such as in the UAE, focus on preserving the contract and adjusting terms without removing deadlines. Question 5. How can contractors and employers avoid time becoming at large? Answer. Ensure clear completion dates, properly manage extensions of time, and avoid acts of prevention that could delay the contractor. I hope you have enjoyed the topic so far. See you in another video.